All right, let's talk about a high stakes race we're all in, whether we realize it or not. It's the race to clean up our cars, our trucks, our roads. Today, we're diving into the official rulebook, a detailed roadmap from the Climate Action Tracker that tells us exactly how fast we need to go to meet our climate goals. So, let's get into it. I want to start with just a number 72%. Any guesses what this is? What does this number mean in the grand scheme of climate change? Just take a second, think about it. Here it is, a whopping 72% of all greenhouse gas emissions from the entire transportation sector. We're talking planes, trains, ships, the whole deal, comes from road transport. Yeah, cars, trucks, and buses. So you can see why tackling our roads isn't just a piece of the puzzle. It's a huge, absolutely critical piece. So here's our game plan for today. First, we'll lay out the sheer scale of the transport dilemma. Then we'll look at the electric roadmap. That's the official course for this race. After that, we'll uncover a really surprising twist with the cars we already own, look at the hurdles on the track, and finally, we'll check our global report card to see who's actually winning. Okay, first up, the transport dilemma. Before we can even begin to talk about solutions, we've got to wrap our heads around just how big of a challenge we're really facing. Let's get on the same page with a key term, tank-to-wheel emissions. It's pretty much what it sounds like, all the CO2 coming directly out of a car's tailpipe. And get this, in 2022 alone, our passenger cars pumped out 3.1 times gigatons of CO2. That is just a colossal number, and it really shows you why this sector is in for such a radical change. Okay, so that's the problem. What's the plan? That brings us to Section 2, the electric roadmap. The Climate Action Tracker has literally mapped out step by step what we need to do with EV adoption if we're serious about limiting warming to 1.5 degrees. These are the benchmarks, the targets we have to hit. No wiggle room. Now, what's really striking here is the sheer speed of this transition. I mean, by 2030, and that's just around the corner, at least 3/4 of all new cars sold across the entire globe need to be electric. And by 2035, it's basically all of them. This is not a slow, gradual shift, folks. This is an all-out sprint. So here's that global target for 2030 in a chart. You can see we need to land somewhere in that 75 to 95% range for new EV sales. That's the benchmark for the planet as a whole. But the roadmap gets a lot more specific when you drill down. Now look how this changes for a country like China. As a major emitter, and let's be honest, the world's biggest EV maker, its target is way higher. Practically 100% of new sales have to be electric by 2030. According to the roadmap, they have to lead the charge. Now, let's contrast that with India. The range here is much, much wider, starting way down at 35%. This is really important because it shows there's a principle of equity built into this whole plan. It gives developing nations a bit more runway, recognizing that everyone's starting from a different place. So the bottom line is this. The race has staggered start times. Wealthier countries in China, you're expected at the finish line for new gas car sales by 2030. Other developing nations, you get until 2040 at the latest. Different paces, same finish line. Okay, let's move on to our next section, because this part is fascinating. It's about a massive challenge that most of us just don't think about. The millions and millions of gasoline cars that are already on our roads right now. I mean, it seems logical, doesn't it? If we just flip a switch, stop selling new gas cars, and only sell EVs, problem solved, right? Well, the data shows it's a lot more complicated than that. What if I told you the real solution involves this number, 7 times? And this has nothing to do with sales. It's all about what we do with the billion-plus gasoline cars already driving around out there. Here's the best way to think about it. Imagine the world's cars are a giant bathtub filling with dirty water. Selling only EVs is like turning off the dirty tap. That's great, but the tub is still full. We also have to pull the plug and drain that dirty water much faster, up to 7 times faster in some places, by getting the old gas guzzlers off the road. Okay, so we know the targets, and we know about this hidden challenge of the cars we already own. But what's actively standing in our way? Let's take a look at the hurdles on this racetrack. So the report flags a few major obstacles. First, the SUV boom. We're buying bigger, heavier cars that need more materials and more energy. Second, you've got massive policy gaps between what countries say they'll do and what's actually needed. Then, of course, there's the whole issue of sourcing battery materials sustainably. And finally, you have growing trade tensions and tariffs that could make EVs more expensive for everyone. And check out this quote directly from the report because it really hammers this point home. It's a bit worrying. In 2023, half of all new cars sold were big, heavy SUVs. So even as we're trying to go electric, our taste in cars is making the problem harder to solve. And that brings us to our final section, the global report card. We've seen the roadmap, we've looked at the hurdles. Now for the moment of truth. Let's check the leaderboard and see how we're actually doing. This chart pretty much says it all. This is what's called the ambition gap for 2030. Based on the promises countries have actually made, we're on track for about 48% EV sales. But remember, the goal is 75 to 95%. That leaves a massive gap. More than half of the effort we need is still missing from our policies. And here's how that breaks down for a few key players. The US is aiming for 50%, but it needs to be near 100%, so far off track. The EU is aiming for 100%, but by 2035, when the science says it needs to be by 2030, so they're off track on the timeline. And then you have India, whose 30% target for private cars actually puts it within its compatible range, for now. So, if you take away this one thing from all this, let it be this. The Climate Action Tracker has given us an incredibly clear map to decarbonize our roads. We know the route, we know the speed limits, we know where the finish line is. The problem is, we're just not running fast enough. And that really leaves us with the final question, doesn't it? The science is there, the technology is there, the roadmap is laid out right in front of us. The real question isn't about the how anymore. It's about the will. As a global community, are we actually willing to put our foot on the accelerator and drive this transition as fast as the science says we must? Thanks for tuning in.